Hi everyone, welcome to the next episode of RachReflects. And in this episode, I'm so excited to have a very special guest with me. He's none other than my husband, my life partner, the father of my children, Leo!
Hi everyone, it's good to be on the show.
Is it really?
It is.
Okay, because Leo is a really private person and it took him a lot to also agree to come on board to share about the journey. And I think why we really wanted to do this is also to shed more light on our lives, our struggles, our challenges as a married couple, as new parents, and as also a couple that's been trying to conceive for a while. We also wanted to talk a little bit more about some of the bumps in the journey, like the miscarriage, how in a certain season last year, our relationship, we drifted a bit in hopes of really encouraging someone out there. And I hope that you might have some takeaways from this episode. So, without further ado, Leo, are you ready?
Yes,
How
always.
are you feeling?
No, I actually thought you were here to ask me about my workout routine and stuff like that.
Yes, that's what I told him. That's why. No, but I'm kidding. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Don't worry. Okay, so I think there's a lot of questions that people have for us. Yeah, maybe let's start with how did we meet? So a lot of people were very interested to know our love story, how we met. But maybe just, a very quick summary. We met in church.
That's
and of
your
course,
version,
it was
right?
love at first sight for Leo. And he started to pursue me for very long. And, and that was how we ended up being together and getting married. Okay, next question.
Oh my. Okay, but it's the reverse. Completely the reverse.
Anyways, yes, we met in church, and that was how we also got to know each other and developed a friendship, a relationship. What was the journey like of wanting to have a second child? Maybe a little bit of context, Leo was actually okay in the very beginning of our relationship with not having kids.
Yeah, I guess because everyone knows that we are 14 years apart, right?
And he's older, by the way. Actually, someone did ask me once, oh, you're 14 years apart. Who is the older one? Oh my gosh. Anyways.
Yeah, so at that point of time, I told myself, once you reach a certain age, expectations are very different, what you want in life, which is why I felt that maybe it's fine, just, having more time to spend with your partner, your wife. That's probably at that point of time more important to me.
Yeah, and maybe you felt like, okay, it's too late, the boat has sailed.
Yeah, the ship has sailed.
The ship
yes.
has sailed. Yes, okay. Yes, more atas. Okay. I've always wanted to have like kids, a big family, because I grew up with like 2 brothers, 14 other cousins. So I've always grown up in a big, fun, boisterous environment. But I put off having kids for a long time, also because of Love Bonito, building Love Bonito, and I was afraid that having a kid would take away time from me, investing into the business, running the business. So I put it off for a while until about 3 years ago, actually 4 years ago, we decided, okay, you know what, it's time, maybe let's just try, because there's never a perfect time. So that was when our journey began. Yeah, so then we had Ollie, which was also, it took us a while to conceive. I ignorantly thought that, okay, the day that I decided that we're going to try for a kid, the next day we're going to get pregnant, like what we see in the movies. But obviously it was not easy at all, especially for me. And we had to go through a while before we finally conceived. And then we had Ollie. Ollie is turning 3 this year. And then, why did you agree to have a second kid?
No, we talked about it, and I realized that I always share with Rachel and friends that I love Ollie so much, and if we had a second child, I really don't know how I was gonna divide my love. But it was more the practical, in a way practical. I call it practical because I think it's good for Ollie to grow up with someone that he could play with, and I think also
companion.
and it will also help him grow in terms of his character, because he's got someone he could look after.
Yeah, and share, go through
yeah.
life with. Yeah, so that's why we always say, Leo, it's not about having to divide your love. Your love would multiply. So maybe we'll invite Leo back again after, his second child is born, and then we'll see how it's like.
Our second child.
Our second child is born, yes. And we'll see how it's like. So how did we find out about this pregnancy? So just for context, at this point of recording, I am halfway through, my second pregnancy. Yeah, so how did we find out?
we were trying for a bit, and it came to a point we were actually we gave up in a way because it was actually quite tiring, the whole process, and it just came naturally. And we found out when we went on a trip with some friends, right?
No, my family actually.
What?
Yeah, Maldives, right? After that.
It wasn't. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got all my facts mixed up.
Yeah. In between, we had a miscarriage, which we will talk about later. How we found out about this current pregnancy. Yeah, we came back from a family trip and I missed my period. We didn't expect that we might be pregnant at all. And then we decided to just take the test and that's how we found out. But what were some of the key challenges faced while trying for a second child? I think like Leo said, we actually have been trying for a while, a little bit more than a year. And every month, it was like, okay, I had timed and counted the days and would take an ovulation test kit to see, okay, am I ovulating? Am I not? Sometimes I would miss it and, be very sad. But there are times where, okay, I realize, oh, I'm ovulating. Okay, I'll go to Leo and like, Leo, we need to do it tonight. And he'll be like, what? Like, it's so...
Spring into action.
They're also very curious to know how is the sex like, especially when we're trying to conceive for a while.
I'm sure a lot of married couples who are trying can relate to this because it almost feels, like I was telling you this morning, robotic, right? And I think that's part of the issue because we are all so rushed being in Singapore, right? You come back home tired. Plus the challenge, I do think it plays a part. Like for guys, when you're that much older, your energy levels are not what it used to be.
Not like a spring chicken.
Yeah, not like a spring chicken. Yeah, so sometimes it's hard, right?
It is.
It's
like
it's a
emotionally,
challenge.
mentally, physically, it can be very tiring.
And that's and that's why I think with Ollie as well, we conceived both when we were actually on vacation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can't really remember, but yeah, I think it was more like when we decided, okay, you know what, we're not going to time, we're just going to take it naturally. And I think it took the stress away from it. I agree it was like robotic and it became like a chore. It's almost like, I have to do it tonight, even though I don't really feel like it. It really took the fun and the intimacy and a little bit of like the passion and the love out of it.
And it doesn't help as well that, like for me, there's like a clock that's ticking also. Because of my age, right? Ollie's 3 this year and I'm 50 this year. So if we don't try now, then 1 year goes by, another year goes by.
Yeah.
When we do have the second baby, I start thinking about, okay, am I going to see him or her get married, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that
It's
adds
a real
pressure.
worry.
I guess I added pressure
Yeah.
to myself because of that.
But last year there was a period and there was a season where in our marriage, we kind of grew apart for a bit, where I neglected my marriage and I neglected Leo, especially when I was really trying to juggle being a new mom and also cope with work and the demands of work at the same time. And that was when I also shared that, Leo, he felt so distant and desperate that in one of my work trips, he actually wrote me a whole long email titled A Cry for Help, where he really poured his heart out and pleaded for me to come back in that sense, right? I think it was also during that period where we were still having to try for a kid. So every month when I was ovulating, I still had to tell him, honey, we have to do it tonight, or I'm ovulating today. And it strained us even more because it almost felt like two unemotionally connected beings having to have such an intimate act. So I think that was also very tough. Yeah, so I think that's our journey to conceiving. But I think also really wanted to share a bit more about our miscarriage, which was something that I felt I wasn't really ready to share when it happened last year. So September last year, which was a trip that Leo was alluding to earlier, when we were on the trip to Desaru with some of our friends. And then I started having very, very bad stomach cramps. And I thought that it was I was having a tummy ache and diarrhea. So I just spammed, diarrhea medicine and everything. And it happened for a few nights in a row. And I thought, okay, you know what? There must be something wrong. I must have had a very bad food poisoning. But of course, I couldn't poop. It was just very bad cramps. And after that, when we came back from the Desaru trip, on that first night back at home, the cramps were so intense and so painful that I couldn't even get out of bed, and I knew that something was wrong. And Leo immediately called one of our doctor friends, and she was like, Dr. Georgia was so kind. She was like, you know what? Something is up. and we don't know what it is. So check her into A&E now at KK Hospital. I'll meet you
Yeah.
there.
And this was late Sunday night. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the fact that she actually replied,
Yeah.
responded. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was how it was. And, how did the journey of loss look like, especially in the first hour, the first day, the first week? To be honest, when we were on our way to the hospital, I was still like packing my snacks. Do you remember? I was packing my chips in my bag. I don't know how long I will have to be in hospital for, but I'm just going to bring my chips and my snacks with me and a book. But when I was wheeled into the A&E and they checked me out, and they immediately, right, the doctors came out and they were like, okay, do you know that you were pregnant? You're having an ectopic pregnancy. You have a miscarriage. And we need to wheel you in to the next immediate available surgery room, operating theatre room. Leo and I looked at each other and we were like, what? There was so much to digest. It was like, you mean I'm pregnant? You mean I have to go through a surgery now? And usually, especially if you go through a surgery, you have to fast like hours before that. If not, there's higher risks and all that. And the doctor also told Leo that if he had brought her in 2 hours later, she might have lost her life because she was already bleeding so much internally. So there was so much that both of us had to wrap our heads around. And right after, I was wheeled into one of the rooms to wait for my turn. So I was separated from Leo, and there was so much going through my mind. I think Leo was outside also settling all the admin payments, writing down all my details. And I remember then I was lying in a room waiting to be wheeled into the next available operating theatre. The nurse was changing me, stripping me down, putting on the operating gown for me. And I was thinking to myself, wow, okay, I had so much to process, right? Like, okay, I didn't even know I was pregnant. I lost a fetus. And apparently, right, what they had found was also that ectopic pregnancy had ruptured my right fallopian tube, which meant that I had to go into a surgery to immediately also remove my right fallopian tube. They had to stop the internal bleeding. If not, it may be life endangering. And there was just so much going through my mind. As I lied there, I had so much like fear and anxiety. I didn't expect that. And so I took out my phone. I remember going onto my notes app and just typing my almost like last messages to like Dion, who is my CEO in Love Bonito, any last words that I had, and also, typing to one of my best friends about the last word that I had for Ollie and what to do and things like that. So there was so much going on during that period. And I think, Leo, how were you outside on the other side of the waiting room?
I think at that moment, it didn't quite register or sink in yet.
Yeah.
It was more, that you would come out of it alive and nothing would happen to you. And I think in hindsight, I guess I'm very good because I've been through, I wouldn't say I've been through a lot in life, but enough to develop this. How I deal with things is I'm able to compartmentalize very well. So I didn't allow that to affect me because I always tell myself that it's done. Even if you cry over it, you can't change anything. And that's really how I moved on. It would have been different, I guess, because we were 5 weeks pregnant, back then.
Like 6.
And I think it would have been very different if, say, you were like
A
20,
while along.
a while
for sure.
along, yeah. So,
Which we also feel a lot for. Like, we know that women go through that. Like, at the later stages of their pregnancy journey, and then the miscarriage happens. And I think that is something that is also very, very hard to go through.
Yeah. But it was definitely mixed emotions. You feel sadness, obviously. Then you also feel sort of like, okay, why us? I don't know. Not that we given up and they want to try, but it was already quite
tail end. Tail end, yeah.
So
the tail end of like being so exhausted from trying. And I think to Leo's point, like, because maybe we didn't even know that we were pregnant. And to me, like I kept thinking like, what is it that I could have done to have prevented this situation? Could I have like checked myself in earlier? I've always thought that, okay, because I have such a high tolerance of pain, I can withstand and go through or tolerate, any kinds of like cramps or aches and basically pain. And I was thinking, if I had not been so stubborn or strong-willed in that sense, could I have maybe saved this fetus and this pregnancy and things like that? So there was really so much going through my mind. And also the severity of like, wow, I actually could have lost my life without even knowing it. What would all of that mean? I remember Leo, after that, right, which we can also talk about, like, after the surgery, when we went home and I was put on a 30-day MC, my goodness, I've never known what a 30-day MC is. Having run Love Bonito for the last 18 years, I have always wrongly prided myself in like hustling through every kinds of sicknesses, discomfort, or illnesses, And now when I'm forced by my husband, by my friends, by Dion, by my colleagues to really just drop everything and rest and recover, I felt like such a loss, right? I felt like, oh my gosh, who am I? Like suddenly when everyone around me doesn't need me anymore, I felt so lost in that sense. And so I think that was also, the conversation that we had after going back from the surgery. When I was resting at home, Leo was like, is this worth it to have nearly lost your life just because you wanted to push through everything else in life? And that was when it really hit me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what was going through your head at that time, especially, when we had a couple of days to let everything sink in and process?
To be honest, I didn't really think much about the whole episode because you were giving strict orders by the doctor to rest, and so I took it upon myself to, take on
To run Love Bonito.
That would have been interesting. No, but to take care of Ollie, the school drop-offs, and
everything,
all of that stuff.
Yeah, so you were just on like work mode, right? Just trying to ensure that everything continues as usual. It was really tough because like I had to be on bed rest at least for the first half of the 30-day MC, and I was instructed, of course, not to carry Ollie, not to walk around, not to climb stairs and things like that. So it was very, very tough for me. That was when I felt so lost also. But I think that's a separate episode where I'll talk about my struggle with my self-identity when you take away my role as, the co-founder of Love Bonito in that sense, my role as a mom, my role as a wife. Then who am I left with? But yeah, I think that was when also Leo had a very serious conversation with me, like, honey, you really have to relook at your priorities, right? We're not getting any younger. We are so grateful to have a second chance in doing life again. But I think, that was something that I was also really thinking about a lot during my bed rest. How long did we have to wait before we started to try again? Actually, we sought many different opinions, right? Like from the TCM, from our doctors, from our gynae.
Yeah.
And they were like, there were differing opinions. Some of them say, oh, as long as, once you passed your 30-day MC, you feel well again, then please, just go ahead and try. Some of them say, oh, let your body recover and heal. Try again after 3 months, right?
Yeah, so the minute
the minute
I found out, I pounced.
Wow, I don't think so. But I guess for us, we also decided to take our time. Like for me, also the realization that, okay, now I only have one fallopian tube left. I was only ovulating and was fertile every other month. So I was also trying to wrap my head around it and just trying to understand, okay, I just need to know which month I'm ovulating, because that means that I can only try every other month. But anyways, we decided that, okay, maybe we'll try after a while later. So we didn't actively, decide to like test and try, and things naturally happened on its own. And that's why during, like we shared earlier, having found out about this pregnancy was a real surprise, because we actually were not like intentionally or actively trying. Yeah. So that was the journey. And what are some of the key lessons from this experience? There's also a question on like, how did you manage to convince your extremely passionate wife to stop being so involved at work or stop being so busy?
Have I convinced you?
Well, maybe it seems so too.
No, I think it's always been like you mentioned earlier about the email I sent you about the cry for help. And when we had the ectopic pregnancy, remember I spoke to you about, you having to slow down, because in the first place, that was what sort of affected our relationship when we were with Ollie, right? When we had Ollie.
Yeah.
So I guess it's hard, I get it. Actually, yes, now I start to realize it, because I'm also now having my own business, albeit just for 1 year, but I can understand. But at the same time, I can't help but also be selfish in a way that look, your priorities certainly lie elsewhere as well. And sometimes I tell myself as well that because your company has grown, or Love Bonito has grown during the days when we first met to where it is now, and you've hired all these amazing people, that you surely can prioritize more. So that's I think.
Yeah, and I think that was also something that I had to go through internally myself and talk through with my coach. What's really holding me back from letting go? And Leo is right. I think I always say that I've hired so many people smarter than me in so many different disciplines, especially around the business. To be honest, right, the business can well run on its own without me. Then why am I still, struggling so much to let go and things like that? So I think that was, in a sense, I am grateful for this entire episode because it really revealed to me what I have been really clinging on and clutching on to so tightly. And it was the beginning of me also being open to really slowly peeling off and letting go. And I think, one of the key lessons from this experience for me is that my health is my first foundation. And I actually never really thought about it that seriously because when I first started the business, I was so young, right? I was full of energy, life, and health, right? And I think for me now at this stage of my life, also knowing that I'm responsible for more than just myself. I'm responsible for my family, my husband, my kids, my team. And so I think for me, it was such an important reminder that my health is my first foundation. Mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. For without which, right, every ambition, dream, aspiration, experience, relationship that I have, would not be able to come to pass, if I don't even have my health intact. So, all of that is really contingent on my first foundation, which is health. And that is what I'm also learning to actively prioritize, to invest in. And I had a very honest conversation with Leo and Dion, actually the two closest people to me in my life, to hold me accountable when they find that, I am not acting in accordance to my commitments or what I want to work towards. I also gave them that permission to call me out and to stop me in my tracks and reprioritize again. Yeah, so the next question is, did the miscarriage affect anything emotionally, mentally, physically when you found out that you were pregnant again? Yes, right?
Yes.
I became extremely paranoid.
The number of additional checkups you would go for.
Literally, especially in the first 3 months, I was so paranoid. Is the baby still there? Is the baby still alive? Is the baby growing? Is the baby okay? Because I couldn't feel anything and I was so paranoid because of the previous episode that we had. And I was just literally, like Leo said, I was just showing up at my doctor's almost every week.
Yeah.
To the point that the nurse will ask me, why are you here again? And I have to come up with something
Were
else.
you not here just 1 week ago?
Yeah. And I just had to say I feel crampy. I just want to check. And I was just so paranoid about every little thing to a point where I felt that it was very unhealthy. It was getting to me. I was I was so anxious and filled with so much fear and anxiety, paranoia, which is not what I want to bring into my pregnancy. And I knew I needed to manage that. So really, literally, we had to pray through it and let it go. And also, I think it took me a while, maybe 3-4 months before I became a lot calmer and better. And I think, a lot more positive in that sense, which was why I also actually really held back sharing about my pregnancy news to people around me because I was just so afraid that, I might not be able to keep it or it might not last long and things like that. But it became so unhealthy to a point where I knew that I needed intervention to let it go. So that was when I spoke to my coach about it, I spoke to Leo about it, and we had to work through it. Yeah, so that was how it impacted us. Do you feel like your relationship has changed ever since you had a kid? So moving on from maybe the topic of miscarriage, now on parenting, life, our relationship. Do you feel like your relationship has changed ever since you had a kid? Yes, right?
Definitely, yeah. Ollie has brought so much joy into our lives. In a way, also, we found ourselves not actually spending enough time with each other, right? So much so that we had to start going back to dedicating
literally putting time in our calendars to cover up for each other, because I think prior to that we will always think, okay, it's okay, next week, tomorrow, whenever, but it never happens. So I remember this quote that says, don't tell me your priorities, show me your calendar. And that's when I decided to, okay, you know what, I'm going to commit to this. And I'm going to set, weekly Cal invites for us to just come together to chat. Because I think what broke my heart was also when Leo told me that, I only know about what's happening in your business and in your life through your company's social media page. And that was when I was like, oh my gosh, I felt so horrible. And I felt that, we needed to do something about it. Yeah, so I think that was what you were trying to share. But I think the other side of how it has changed our relationship was also that we see each other evolve and step into this new role as parents that to me is so beautiful. I wasn't, to be honest, expecting Leo to be so hands-on, such a loving, amazing dad. And to see the way, he has really embraced and thrived in this role so far.
What? I didn't expect myself
I was
to
really
be like that too.
I have a newfound love and respect for him. Although I would say I always tell Leo that, oh my gosh, please, you also have to be very, very firm, and you also need to play the bad cop sometimes, because in this dynamic I am always the bad cop because Leo cannot bring himself to
I have a couple of times.
a couple
Once
of
or
times.
twice.
Literally just once. Okay, I think. But yeah. So, anyways, that's what we're also learning through. But it's such an amazing adventure to see another side of each other that we never knew existed.
Yeah, and I remember I used to, before Ollie was coming into our lives, I used to ask friends who, I have a group of close friends who have 3-4 kids, and I remember asking them, what's it like, having a child? I will always remember this friend of ours, Daniel. He said, it's the best thing ever. It's the most beautiful, amazing thing. There's nothing better than to, come back home at the end of the day and have your child run up to you and, call you daddy, mommy, give you a big hug. And back then I remember, I don't know whether I mentioned it to him now. I said, but that kind of sounds like having a pet also,
Yeah, I was
right?
thinking in my head. Except
No, but
they can't call you daddy or mommy, but they can show you back their tails.
Yeah, but so that experience is really, really quite amazing. Yeah, so I think it's definitely changed us for the better for sure.
Yeah. You literally have to learn to work together as a team, cover each other, especially in the early days, when Ollie will wake up every 3 hours and you really need to tag team in that sense. So it's been, an adventure.
Or when you have to, you make me wake up with you.
Oh, to calm. Yes, it's true. The next question is, both of you seem so busy. How do you find quality time to communicate and spend together?
I think in a way, it's good that I'm largely working from home now. Whenever you're back, we do find some time to catch up. And other than that, like you mentioned earlier, also dedicating time, at least once or twice a week, where we get to go out together, just the two of us, and have an earnest catch-up session.
Earnest catch-up session, yes. I think the other thing that has also helped my perspective in this relationship is also, like what the government calls bits of connection. So bits of connections are like verbal or non-verbal gestures that we actually give to each other, whether we know it or not, as a couple, whether is it like the body language, the way we look at each other, certain things that we say. And I think the amazing thing is, for me, it's also paying attention to Leo's bits of connection. There is a golden ratio that they realize amongst couples that succeed and couples that do not succeed. The golden ratio is that couples that succeed actually turn to each other's bits of connection in the ratio of 5:1. So I think that has also been something that I'm very conscious of. Whenever Leo tries to, get my attention, or whenever I try to get his attention. And I think this is something that we really are very conscious of, especially in this season of our journeys where we're also learning to juggle and cope. Staying with our in-laws, there's also different demands and needs. Of course, raising a toddler. And then, like Leo said, he's just started out in his business, and for us also focusing on our work, yet at the same time not neglecting our marriage. So we rely really on paying attention to each other's bits of connection.
Yeah,
Please Google it.
And I think, if I may add also, I feel that what works for us is that we we don't take each other for granted. Like, to me, it's the simple things. Like, we never fail to greet each other in the morning, right? We never fail to give each other a kiss when we leave the house, or wish each other good night. So most of the time, I sleep first, right?
He sleeps at like 10, so
No,
yes.
10:30 sometimes. Because I wake up at 5. So I think that's really important. It may not work for everyone, but I think that's quite basic, to be honest, right?
For us, right?
Yeah.
Because that's also part of our love language. Yeah. So, and that's also part of our bits of connection. Okay, so how does Leo feel about becoming a dad at an old age?
Who's old? Who's old in this room?
As of the time of recording, Leo is 50 years old. So
And soon to be, not yet. It is tiring. Yeah.
even though he already works out every day of the week, like 5 times a week, he still finds it tiring. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I mean, initially, obviously, it was the lack of sleep, right? Because you're waking up to feed Ollie, put him back to sleep, change diapers, all of that. But now it seems like, you constantly having to, entertain him, play with him, right?
Yeah,
And that's
spend
really
time with
tiring.
him. Yeah. Or
And
like he wants to be carried around. And
yeah, he's going through that phase
Yeah.
where he wants to be carried most of the time. Yeah.
But do you feel that was there any difference? I think maybe also trying to ask in a sense where, like, do you think younger Leo would have been a different dad from
Oh,
the
definitely.
dad that you are now? Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. Physical aspect aside, I really don't think that I would be this prepared. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Not that I am prepared, but maybe not as patient
Back then.
back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leo is extremely patient. I think I've trained you well. Okay, this is an interesting question. Is there one thing that of each other, that you want each other to work on to be a better wife or husband, or a better father or mom?
Wow, this is loaded. Wow, I didn't see that coming. You didn't send me this list.
I didn't send you anything.
Yeah, so Rach, how do you feel?
Wow.
The audience would love to hear. What's the question again?
Is there one thing that you want me to work on to be a better wife and mom?
I feel like for the sake of wanting to sleep in my bed tonight,
And for the rest of the nights? No lah, it's okay.
yeah, still being present more, because I think for me, sometimes I don't know, I don't call myself an expert, but I think Ollie misses you because he sees more of me at home.
Yeah.
Can I tell them a funny story?
Please.
Yeah, so just the other day, I think it was a Sunday, and Sunday, my mother-in-law usually comes over to help, and it's a chance for us to enjoy each other's company. So Ollie picked up my mother-in-law's phone and
Pretend play.
yeah, pretend play. Then so I said, Ollie, I'm calling you, and he went like, "Hello, Mama, are you coming home soon?" Then he replied, "No," and we never taught him any of that to begin with, and the fact that he answered right away himself, "No," of course at that point of time it was, "Oh, so cute, so cute. Can you do it again?" Then you record it, but when you actually think about it, there must be a reason why he he said that. That answer so instantly. That's I guess my way of saying that. To spend more time with us.
I think it's true. I think it's something I definitely need to work on. I am still really struggling through, and I'm very grateful that I have people like you and the people around me to hold me accountable to that. So yes, hopefully in the next episode, next time you come back, you have better news to share. Okay.
You didn't answer.
To be a better husband and father. I think Leo generally is very, very patient, and I'm very grateful his patience towards me, Ollie, and every time where he feels like he needs to tell me something, he would gently nudge me, and I think finding the right time to be able to give me a feedback has also been very helpful in me being able to receive it well when I'm at the right mind space. And then I think, being a better father is also where I shared, right? I think being able to be also firm with Ollie Leo has really a soft spot for Ollie. Like, even when he wants to correct Ollie or discipline Ollie, when Ollie just gives him the puppy eyes, Leo would just melt into like a marshmallow or like, and he would just lose that moment completely. But yeah, he really tries. But please keep trying. Okay. And as before we close the episode, Leo, do you have any final advice or like word for maybe some of us who are listening and are also trying to find a groove in our relationship?
I think once you reach a certain point in your life, you make a big decision, obviously, to share your life with someone. And you must realize that essentially you're two very different people, right? Two different characters, likes, dislikes. And there will definitely be a friction. And just work through it. Find a way that works best for the both of you to work through it. And sometimes you may find that it's very challenging. You may reach a point where you may even say, okay, maybe
It's better
we should
to give up.
you should give up. Yeah, but just
And
work through it.
we have been through that.
Yeah, just have to work through it, because I think with everything in life, you learn from these episodes, and it definitely does improve the relationship. Because
if you choose for it too.
Yeah, if you choose for it too, because I think you may not believe this, but I listen to your podcast as well. You talk about obviously reflection a lot, right? Yeah, and you must allow yourself time to reflect, right? Not just about the incident itself, but also about what you then talked about, the steps that you're going to take, stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot of self-work. Yeah, understanding the triggers, understanding why we responded a certain way. And I think what's most important is maybe something that people don't place enough emphasis on is actually how we repair after a conflict. And I think that for us is the single most important thing, like how we repair again, to be connected. I think like in every relationship and journey, there are always times of like connection, disconnection, and reconnection. And I think it's so important for us to always, especially, once we have simmered down and calmed down in whatever ways that we take, it's always important to come back to repair, to talk through it, and I think reconnect again. And I think that for us has been very helpful in us getting stronger again and talking through the issues, getting to the root of it instead of just sweeping it under the carpet. Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, Leo, for coming on board as our special guest.
You're most welcome. I'm sure I'm going to be back here.
Oh, because?
The audience will want me back.
Anyways, thank you so much, and I hope that you took away something from this. Please leave us any feedback or comments or questions that you might have for us. If not, we'll see you again at the next episode. I'll see you again at the next episode of Rach Reflects. Bye.